Come down. Ooh, you make my high come down. Always tripping when you come around. Never have to cut you out like right now. You see, I don't have to drive me. You can say that for your mama. Maybe you should smoke some. Me try the marijuana. I was never you good. The vibe was straight. Showed you a couple of things and they feel strange. I treated you right. Everything was a gift from a time to your bag and the color on your lip.
Welcome to the Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast, powered by Blue Wire. Shout out to the new company. My name is Michael-Shawn and You guys can follow me on whatever Elon Musk is calling that app these days. My @name has not changed, @Mike Dugar, MikeDugar. Shout out to everyone who was watching or listening via our YouTube channel. Seahawks Man-to-Man is the name of the channel. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you in advance. Also, make sure you follow us on Instagram. Seahawks Man-to-Man is the name of the channel there. Is the name of the handle there as well. And on TikTok, Seahawks Man-to-Man is the handle there as well. Thank you again in advance for doing both of those things for us. It really means a lot, even if you're not big on either of those platforms. Chris, go ahead and talk to him.
What is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Christopher Kidd. You can follow me on Twitter at CKIDD206, and that is CKid206.
All right. As you guys can see on YouTube, I'm coming to you. I'm straight from the stadium, man. I'm still at Ford Field. At the time of the recording right now, it is 1:49 Eastern. That's how much I love you guys. I got an early flight. So while you're listening to this, I'm probably knocked out in seat 19A right now on the Delta flight back. So this is really raw reaction, fresh. Me and Chris talked a little bit before we rolled, but that's about it. You know, I haven't really got to watch a lot of the plays. I'm only about 35 minutes removed from being in the locker room, very quiet locker room, as you would expect after a loss like that. It was tough to get some defensive interviews today. Shout out to the guys who did. You know, no shade to the guys who didn't want to talk today. It happens after losses. Some guys don't want to talk after wins, so it ain't really no thing. But as you can imagine, not a lot to say from the defensive guys in the locker room today. They know they did not play to their standard. They didn't want to talk about who wasn't there, there's a lot of veterans who played a lot of ball that played today that were in the starting lineup. Guys like Draymond, Hank, Rayshawn, Reek's in year 3, Trey Brown's in year 4, Tyrell's in year 6 or something like that. So it wasn't just a bunch of young pups with no experience out there on the field. And yes, they were undermanned. Yes, Detroit's a good offense. Yes, this is a tough environment to play, but through no fault of their own, the Seahawks came into this game faced with, at least outside the building, a healthy amount of skepticism. They beat up on Bo Nix, who, despite his team being 2-2, he's not very good, at least not right now. They beat up on Bo Nix. They eked one out against Jacoby Brissett, and they beat up on Skylar Thompson / Tim Boyle, right? And because of that, on both sides of the ball, you had people who were like, yo, let's see you do this against somebody real, quote unquote real. And let's see with the defense in particular, led by Mike Macdonald, let's see what you can do and put to the test against a real deal offense. Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the best O-lines in football, even without Frank Ragnow, their center. Sam Laporta, the best running back duo in the league. Like, in terms of tests, this is on the road, Monday Night Football. In terms of tests, Chris, this was about as tough as you're going to get outside of playing the Chiefs in Arrowhead, and even their offense, is down some guys. It's about as tough as a test it gets. This is the SAT. This is that final exam, this semester, quarter, whatever. And Chris, they went in there, wrote their name on the Scantron, put C on all the little bubbles, and left. This is a failing. I did that once in college, by the way. But this is a failing class. This is a failing effort, man. This is getting an F. Jay Reed said after the game, we didn't bring our A game, or maybe that was Tyrell Dodson, one of the two. Sorry, guys, I didn't eat much or sleep. But Tyrell Dodson said after the game, said we didn't bring our A game. This was an F. They didn't stop the run. They didn't stop the pass. They had a trick. They gave up another trick play. It's like, the trick plays is coming, gave up one of those for a tug again. Feels like that happens every time they come to Detroit. Just in every box they should have maybe checked, they just didn't check. They didn't check any of them. They got 3 sacks, which is cool. Me and Chris were just looking at the stats before we hopped on. They had a sack rate today of 14.3%, right? That's a really high number. Will Levis, I think, is sacked at the highest rate in the league at about 13%. So if you were to sack if you were to sack the quarterback as often per drop back as they did today, you'd be a really good defense. The problem is, Chris, they didn't force an incompletion today. Like I've just never seen that, and it wasn't like a dink and dunk. Even when Bo Nix was dinking and dunking it, they got incompletions. This was real deal carving up a damn near perfect game from the line. I will call it a perfect game from the Lions. Quarterback was perfect. Running backs was getting busy. Plays calls was just nasty. Everything was working, outside of one weird toss play on third down in the fourth quarter. Like, they really just, Ben Johnson was in his bag. The Seahawks were very much not in their bag. They were out of sorts, missed tackles, explosives. It was just the quite possibly the worst. It was up there with any bad defensive performance of the last like 6 years, for sure. Ken Norton, Clint Hurt. Chris, it was about as bad as it gets. And again, to no fault of their own, they're going to now going forward, even if they stomp the Giants and whoever else going forward, it will definitely be, yeah, but when you win against someone real, they kick your ass. And it's going to be hard to overcome that. You got the Niners in, I think, week 7, so maybe, or week 6, so you got a chance. But right now, today, this week, yeah, man, anybody who had doubts, they're going to keep them doubts, hold on to them, and take them to the bank because Seattle just did not. They dropped the ball on defense in about every way possible.
Yeah, it's unfortunate and how it led up to it. You don't have Boye Mafe. You lose Leonard Williams. No Byron Murphy. All these players that are key to stopping the run, including Uchenna Nwosu, who hasn't played a single game this season. And the thought process was don't put him on injury reserve because you know what? We'll have him back for that week 4 matchup against Detroit Lions at Detroit. And he will be a vital piece to slowing down the run game because that's something that he is really good at. And to your point, Mike, I didn't see any flashes of stopping the run game outside of that fourth and 1 or 3rd and 1 where the Lions threw a toss to Montgomery and it wasn't executed well on the offense, and Terrell Dotson was able to find his way into the backfield and make a tackle for loss. Outside of that, the Lions executed at a 99% clip. They did whatever they wanted, and some of the questions that we were asked about from the game, well, what happened with the DBs in the secondary because everyone was wide open. I think they were so worried about stopping the run, which is something the Seahawks has had a little success against teams such as Denver, Patriots, the Dolphins, that your defense is now susceptible to giving up the passing plays when they do a play action pass because your DBs now, they feel the pressure of getting a stop in the run game. Your linebackers definitely feel the pressure because Big Jonathan Hankins went up there after the game in the press conference and he said pretty much guys weren't filling gaps. There was just no communication as a team. They were all in disarray. There wasn't, and you could just see it. And I figured that might happen just because of the injuries and how big this game is for the Lions and for the Seahawks. This is their first NFC opponent that they faced, and now they're 0-1. So, long story short, at the end of the season, if it comes down to a tiebreaker, well, the Lions have that one over the Seahawks. But maybe it doesn't come down to that. And I think this is a learning experience for those guys that got in there and didn't play their best. They can go back to the film and try to be better. That way, when they are called upon again for injuries, hell, it might be next week because Byron Jones' hamstring, I'm going to be honest with you, that's something that could linger around for a couple of weeks.
Byron Murphy.
What'd I just say?
Byron Jones, I think there's a corner from the Dolphins,
My bad.
I think. But it's okay. Go ahead.
Byron Murphy, that injury is pretty serious. So you hope that he doesn't rush it back and try to make up and play against the Giants. But if he's healthy 100%, sure, go for it. But I just saw this game as a potential that the Seahawks just could get tested just because they haven't faced a good offense, a really good offense. Obviously, going up against Skyler and the Miami Dolphins, backup quarterback. You got 2 good receivers. Doesn't really matter, especially with the pass rush. That guy didn't want to get rid of the football, so the Seahawks were able to dominate him. And then when you go up against Jared Goff, as Mike mentioned, didn't throw an incomplete pass, 20 for 20, couple of tugs, a lot of explosives. It's really tough to slow him down. And again, that running game was on fire. They really did whatever they wanted. From Jahmyr Gibbs, he had 14 rushes for 78 yards and 2 touchdowns. He averaged 5.6 yards per carry. David Montgomery, he had 12 attempts for 40 yards. So they did a better job on him. But for the most part, man, they had no answers. And thank goodness for Geno Smith in the offense, because if it wasn't for them, this would have been really ugly. But Geno was able to deliver against the Lions yet again. He had a really strong game, had a couple of bad passes, but outside of that, I thought Geno just showed that he can ball with some of the best. And despite the defense putting them in tough situations, obviously you probably would not be too happy with DK fumbling, but I get it. He's fighting for extra yards, and that's something that's part of his game. I don't think the coaches are going to tell him get down. That's not a part. That's not what he does. Ty Lockett, on the other hand, he'll get down. So if Ty Lockett was fighting for yards and he fumbles, maybe the criticism is fine there. But they got in a tough situation. They tried clawing back, but it wasn't enough. The Lions they kept responding. I mean, damn, they didn't punt in the first half. Just think of
No, they punted. They punted their first drive.
Okay, you're right. They
And
did
then
punt
and then they went. Then they went crazy.
and then they got on a roll, and they just kept going, and the Seahawks couldn't stop the bleeding. They just could not stop the bleeding. They tried everything, and I could see Mike McDonald over there just flustered, like, my God, we are doing everything wrong right now. But this is a good learning experience for this team. They went up against a talented offensive line, and it wasn't enough. And I think they'll be better for it. This is a good loss in terms of looking in the mirror and saying, okay, where can I improve? All right. And Devin Witherspoon had a couple of missed tackles that normally he makes. He almost had another sack that he still didn't get. So there's some positivity from this game, but obviously the players are taking it the worst. They didn't want to lose this game. They felt they had every opportunity to win the game, and that's fair. But I think the better team won on Monday Night Football, and they have another test coming up against the Giants. And to be honest, they should roll those guys. They shouldn't have any issues. Everything that they've struggled with, they should be better at against the Giants. That's an opponent that the quarterback situation's iffy. They got Malik Neighbors, but outside of that, the Seahawks should have success. So this is something that they should learn from and aim to get better as the season progresses.
So yeah, two things. One, Mike McDonald got to be flustered, not just because it went bad, but because they were bad at things they had previously been good at, things that I don't think are that reliant on talent. So some like tackling, some of it was just like some bad angles and stuff too. Like that's not. I would have expected everyone they put out there to tackle well. Tyrese Knight, playing for Jerome Baker, expect him to tackle well. I'm not saying he missed any, but like I'm going down the list of like guys who were not in, quote unquote starters. Julian Love went down. He missed the whole second half. I would have expected Kayvon Wallace and Kobe Bryant to tackle well. Again, I don't know if they missed many in particular. I haven't rewatched the game, but nothing like egregious. But Draymond Jones, Hankins, Mike Morris, even Travis Gibson, was a veteran guy. I would have expected those guys to tackle. Derek Hall, Spoon, Trey Brown, Reek, have good angles, tackle, Tyrell Dodson. And the communication wasn't there. Guys were not on the same page. The 70-yard touchdown by Jameson Williams, I don't know what the hell that was. That was just, it was a fire zone gone wrong. I think there was only 5 guys in coverage. I couldn't tell. Usually if you blitz that many people, they blitz both safeties, right? Usually if you all out blitz like that, you usually manned up on the back end. Looked like they played zone on the back end of it, but I couldn't tell. Spoon was in man, and then Tyrell was in man maybe, but Reek let Jameson go. Maybe he was in zone. I tried to ask the guys after no one gave me any details. So maybe we'll figure it out later. Maybe they never tell us. It doesn't ultimately matter. The point is things like communication and tackling should translate if that's going to be your MO. And that's probably where Mike McDonald's like, damn, man. Okay, maybe if you had a backup in there, maybe Mike Morris gets washed on a few run plays, right? Backup. Stuff like that may happen. But guys just letting guys run free, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All these explosives, not being on the same page. Those are all things you should always expect those things to translate. That's what the good defenses do. Not to say a good defenses can't have games like this. The Niners, when they have their elite defenses, they get rolled like this. Deshaun Watson carved up the Ravens last year with a bum shoulder, right? Like it can happen. And that was in Baltimore. The Ravens lost to Gardner Minshew, go Cougs last year, in Baltimore. So that doesn't mean be perfect, but there's certain things you would just like to be consistent. And I'm sure Mike McDonald's like, dog, We just did all these things for a month. What
Yeah,
happened? Why couldn't we do that?
if they
Those are
did
the
those,
basics.
yeah, and to your point, if they did tackle better, this is a little. This changes a lot of things actually. So
Yeah,
that,
because that's why tackling is so important. Because if you do it, it's hard to, football's physical. That's as much as you get play calling and scheme and coverage and sacks and everything. At the end of the day, football is like hit someone real hard today. That's really what it come down to at its most fundamental level, right? And if you do that, if that's your MO and you carry that, and anybody can do that, then you should have a chance to win every week. You may
yeah,
not, but you'll have a chance. The other thing is I would have expected a lot more from the coverage unit to not force any incompletions, and I'm not even sure there was many ops for forcing incompletions. Like I'm not even I can't remember many contested catches that happened today where it was like, oh, that's just a great ball. Maybe there was one. Again, I ain't watched the film or nothing yet, but that's just totally inexcusable. I looked up in the fourth quarter. Actually, I didn't look up. Somebody texted me and was like, yo, is Goff about to throw a perfect game? And I'm like, what does that mean? Perfect passer rating, maybe? So I go look up. I'm like, yo, he's 16 of 16. This was like late
and,
in the fourth.
and my bad, he finished 18 of 18, not 20 for 20.
Yeah, like that's a crazy number. 18 of
Yeah,
18. And it wasn't dink and dunk. He was
no
pushing it. Not totally,
downfield.
not like super risky throws per se, but enough that he wasn't Bo Nix. You know what I mean? Like he was being just it was a normal golf offense, you know what I'm saying? And to have that happen, those are two things between the communication and tackling and then the passing defense. The secondary wasn't undermanned. It lost J Love, so I won't say totally not undermanned, but shoot, Goff was perfect in the first half with J Love. You know what I mean? So he makes a difference. Let me not discount that, but you guys can get the general point of what I'm saying. You should force an incompletion every game. I feel very confident saying that. At least one. To have
Yeah.
zero is nuts. Nuts. That's a nuts stat. And you just never want to be on the wrong side of that. 18 for 18 is crazy in a regular game. That's crazy in a preseason game. To be honest, keep it funky with you. That's the part where the floor of this game, the floor of the defense is perhaps a lot lower than we thought. Yes, they were undermanned, but I feel like as time goes on, it won't, not forget about that. But for example, I'll give you this, Chris. Can I read something for a second here? Is
Yep.
that okay? I'm going to read the starting defense from the playoff game that they lost, the wild card game in 2022. Let me read that starting defense. Chenna, Shelby Harris, Poona Ford, Al Woods, Bruce Irvin, like 35-year-old Bruce Irvin, Cody Barton, Tanner Muse, Michael Jackson, Reek Woolen, Ryan Neal, Quandre Diggs. It's a very short-handed unit. Those were not the starters most of the year. That's no Jordan Brooks. That's no Jamal Adams, who was playing well that year. Forget. Or no, that's the year he got hurt in the first game. But yeah, no Jamal Adams. Reek and Mike Jack is cool, but that's a lot of guys, Chris, who are no longer in the league. And if they are in the league, they aren't starting, let alone starting on a playoff team, right? There's a few guys in there who aren't even in the league, right? So, or bench guys, rotation guys. So my point is, like, no one's like, oh man, Clint Hurt didn't have his guys. Eventually, you're just like, yo, you lose the benefit of the doubt when you consistently put that on tape. So I read that to say, being undermanned is it is what it is in this particular game, but going forward, you're going to need to kick people's ass for you to get the benefit of the doubt back. Because right now, it just looks like you can only kick the butt of like shorthanded teams, which is it's not going to get it done. Because that side of the ball, we're putting under some scrutiny. We can talk about Geno. I'm sure we have a Twitter question that'll lead us into that. But this side of the ball was always going to be the most intriguing because if you're going to fire a defensive guy in Pete Carroll, known as like the best, modern defensive coach, covered three, revolutionized, modernized, whatever adjective you want to use. Pete Carroll was that guy. And you fired him because it looked like he was kind of he was behind the 8 ball a little bit. At least that's how it looked. You fire him, you bring in the new hotness. Cool. What's the new hotness do? Kicks ass for 3 weeks. And then he comes to Detroit, real test, gets his ass kicked. Okay. Now you got to get the benefit of the doubt back. It is gone. It's on that. It's on a flight. It's out of here. And yes, undermanned. I understand. really good team, but the Seahawks don't view the 2024 season as we're gonna be this frisky wild card team. No, they're like, we want to be contenders. All right, you went up against the contender. And on defense, this was awful. We can talk about the offense in the next segment. But yeah, man, this was their real test. This was the final. And they came in there. This looked like they crammed until midnight. Breath still smelled like Red Bull and gum. Showed up late. Teacher's like, yo, go sit down, man. You late. Get a book. And we're just like, yo, I don't know none of the answers. And we screwed. Can I make a movie reference before we go?
Absolutely.
All right. The movie reference I'll choose for this is Pursuit of Happiness. And actually, I got two Will Smith movie references. The funny one is kind of made me feel like the scene in Men in Black, the first one, where everybody's trying to fill out how to do the test. Ain't got no desk. And he just scoops the joint and it's super loud. I don't know if that applies. Just made me think of it. My other one is the Pursuit of Happiness. There is a scene in there when he takes the test at the end of the internship, and he's in the elevator with bro, and he's like, yeah, what'd you think of that? And they're talking about it. And I think Will says to him, he's like, yo, what do you think of the essay question at the end? And the guy's like, essay question? What you talking about? And he got to go run back and do the thing. That's what it looked like. Seahawks didn't realize there was a whole back page where you had to fill out the real answers, and they didn't do well. And like you said, they'll learn from it. But even with all the little asterisks you can put on this game, I did not expect the defense to look like that. I thought the Lions would win, but I did not, Chris, think it would be a butt whooping with the Seahawks giving up a bazillion points and not forcing an incompletion. I would have never guessed that. Never in my wildest imagination could I have envisioned this kind of letdown on that side of the ball, even with the guys they were missing on defense.
Goff makes history. Yep. Jared Goff finished 18 for 18. New NFL record for most passes in a single game with 100% completion rate. And to your point, Mike, you didn't even know during the game that he was balling the way he was. Dan Campbell from our friend that covers the Detroit Lions who we had on the podcast last week, he was basically quoting Dan Campbell and saying that he didn't realize Jared Goff went 18 for 18 on Monday night. Campbell, I just gave the game ball to somebody else. I feel awful. So
yeah, it didn't even feel like he went busy like that. Then you look up and you're like, oh my God, he did what?
Yeah,
that's crazy.
So that just encapsulates what happened with the Seahawks defense. And I think it's time to get to Twitter questions because I think to your point, Mike, if we can't get the Geno Smith in there, but I think just the overall thing is, man, what happened with that defense? So, Mike, are you ready for some Twitter questions, man? Because we got quite a few.
Can we start with? Is there anything I haven't looked at our batch. Do we have anything on the offense?
Yes.
So we can show Geno some love to start Twitter questions.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, this is not directly for Geno, but this is from Tanner. Can we be happy that the offense completed screens and better on third down?
Yes and yes. I text Chris. What did I text you? This was. Hey, I almost read it verbatim. Let me see. Hopefully I didn't have any slurs in there.
You said,
here we go. Yeah. I'll just read the exchange because it was kind of funny. I said a Farrell Brown screen, 3 question marks. Chris said they ain't giving up. I said K9 and LaVisca screens with the green check mark emoji. And then, yep, Chris said, ha, 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 they work. Never give up. And then I point out with some profanity in there that running screens to Farrell Brown, Noah Fant, and Tyler Lockett, all of them caught a screen before Jackson, I believe. I said that was that was insane. And Chris said, yes, we can agree on that. Like, yes. And then the third down numbers, let me pull those up real fast. 5 of 10 on third down. That's
not bad.
And I don't really think they had many short third downs. I'd have to really check that.
They did not, Mike.
Yeah, like
average
they
depth.
had 7.8 yards was their average line to gain on third down. I believe that would probably be like top 5 in the league. They had 2 third and shorts, and they actually didn't convert either one. 3rd and 3 to Tyler and 3rd and 3 to DK. So, yeah, I thought they were really good on third down. That was encouraging. In general, I thought the pass protection was decent enough, considering the circumstances, Aiden Hutchinson and stuff. There were some times where Stone just had him one-on-one and had to win, and he did his thing. Geno was excellent in the pocket. I mean, this is not – I don't know if we talked about Mike Sando's quarterback tiers. where he, every summer he, interviews like 50 execs and everything, and they rank the quarterbacks in tiers. Geno was in tier 3, 20th quarterback ranked, tied with Derek Carr. And his ranking, so here's how tier 3 is defined. How Sando defines it when he gets the rankings. A tier 3 quarterback is a legitimate starter, but needs a heavier running game and or defensive component to win. A lower volume drop back passing offense suits him best. Right? That's how tier 3. That's what they put Geno. Here's how tier 3 is described. A tier 2 quarterback can carry his team sometimes, but not as consistently. He can handle pure passing situations in doses and or possesses other dimensions that are special enough to elevate him above tier 3. He has a hole or two in his game. Chris, which one of those sounds like Geno? Tier 2 or tier 3?
I think we've been on the tier 2 Geno train since his first year as a full-time starter. Once we saw him in live action. Now, I know we were very critical during training camp and with the whole Drew Lock battling for who's going to start. Hell, I lost money on that, okay? But when it got to the games, to your point, he is more of a tier 2 quarterback, and I think he's proven that. I really do. And again, on Monday night, he does it again. Although they don't win this time, because now Geno is what, 2-1 against the Lions as a Seahawk, if I'm not mistaken. So
yes, 2-1. This is his first loss. Yeah,
didn't go his way, but man, was he just making really good throws and doing his best with everything going on. So didn't really answer the question in regards to the screen game, but when Geno is making up for a few issues they're having, you can see that he is definitely not a tier 3 quarterback, which is kind of why I was shocked. But I think if he keeps playing the way he does, the way he has these past 4 games going, well, obviously he wasn't great in the first 3, but if he continues to just keep getting better and better, I think next season he'll definitely fall in that tier 2 category. I just was stunned that he didn't fall into it going into this year, but what can we say?
I don't know how anyone watched. Sorry to cut you off. I don't know how anyone watched the Seahawks for 2022 and 2023 and were like, yeah, that guy needs a running game and a defense to be good. What Seahawks were y'all watching for those? He had neither of those things and was fine, that was just so strange based on that criteria. I bring up the criteria because, as we've talked about on the show, Geno consistently has games where you're just like, wow, if the guys around him were better, the team would have won. That happens like 4 or 5 times a year, it feels like, in his last couple seasons. And again today, like, his pass catchers were decent. His O-line was decent, and the run game came to life in the second half. But like, I think he played from behind damn near the entire game, except for the first drive. After that, it was like, damn, we cooked. He was down 2 scores for most of the game. And you didn't see panic. You didn't see pressing. You just saw accurate throws, playmaking, in command, 3rd and longs. I love the hook and ladder play. That was well executed. That was real good. They were getting penalties and he was still getting it done. 4th down, sneak it. 4th down, forget who he converted that one to. Even the one that got called back. Great rollout to JSN. Like, he was nails, not perfect, which was what was required to win this game, was perfection, which they didn't have. But going forward with the offense, talking to those guys in the locker room, it was almost like 2 different locker rooms, damn near. Not to say the offensive guys were happy, but they definitely felt like the Lions didn't do nothing for real. They felt we hurt ourselves. I think Jackson, and I have this quote in my story that came out today or Tuesday morning. He said, "There's no stopping this offense." And his point was that when we stop ourselves, penalties, whatever, his point was, when we don't do that, we can cook. And he's not wrong. We've kind of been seeing that for most of this early season. Like, when the offense don't do, OPI, multiple OPIs is kind of tough. Holding penalties, ineligible downfield. They find a way to get a penalty every week, like a costly one. When they don't have those, they can roll, and they have firepower like very few teams have. Between Jackson, Tyler, Ken, and DK, with Geno spinning, that's about as good as a skill position group you're going to get in the NFL. It really is. You look around the NFL, the Eagles, when healthy, is probably the one I'm going to concede. If there's another one, I'm sorry. Oh, the Lions are good too. Lions, Eagles, and Seahawks probably the best you're looking at in terms of skill, talent. Throw the quarterback in there. Seahawks can put up points with whoever. And largely it's because of Geno. Like, He's really, really, really solid. I think it was Greg Roman, who's now the OC of the Chargers. When he got hired, he was like, they traded all their receivers away, and he had a quote that was in effect, "Imagine Justin Herbert with a run game," right? Because they've been struggling to run the ball. Like it kind of applies to the Seahawks too. Imagine Geno with a defense is basically what it amounts for real. That's what it amounts to. Like if the defense from the first 3 weeks, if they're even just half of that, if they're just an average defense and Geno and the run game and the O-line play like that, then you're talking about a real legit contender in the NFC. I'm not even kidding. That's how good I think the quarterback is, the pass catchers, and what I think the O-line can be for real. Because they was locked in today. Credit to them. Run game, pass game, they was pretty locked in. My standout plays or my one big thing when I watched the film would probably have to do with that O-line. They were really solid. But yeah, hat tip to King Gene, man. It's a shame that he didn't get a dub. Not to say he's the only one who deserved it, but like I do feel in terms of perception and reputation, he had the most to gain because it feel like Geno be cooking and his games be on like 4 o'clock Eastern and nobody really watching because the Cowboys are on or the Chiefs are on CBS or something. And it's just like only a few tape grinders and Seahawk fans and people in the Pacific time zone really know that Geno's nice like that. I talked to Dan Orlovsky about that this week. Dan had him as a top 5 quarterback. And then today he looked exactly like that. He looked like a top 5 quarterback today. There's very few quarterbacks under those circumstances who would have looked that cold against a decent defense in that situation, and it's all for naught. Now it don't matter. We spent the first 20 minutes talking about the defense instead of King Gene, because they spoiled it. They wasted that. There's probably some parts he could have been better, like you said, Chris, but all things considered, that man was on fire today. And Geno said he likes having the ball in his hands. He likes having it on him, but Pete's staff got fired because of that. It was like, yo, we can't win like that. We can't go where we want to go. We could be frisky. We can't go where we want to go if it's Geno's right arm or bust. And today it was Geno's right arm or bust, pretty much. And a few good runs by Ken. But you can't win like that. A good team will beat your ass if you do that. And that's exactly what we saw today.
This whole national media not knowing about Geno, to your point, because the games are at 1 o'clock, 4 Eastern, and there's other teams that are playing. It reminds me of the whole Michael Penix Jr. with UW. He's playing in the Pac-12 at the time, and they don't have that many big games that are on ABC or primetime TV. And Michael Penix is out here killing. He's looking really good. And you fast forward to the NFL draft, and scouts and GMs are saying, "Damn, this is Michael Penix is like that." And they're like, "Yeah, bro, you didn't watch any games, you didn't watch any tape afterward." So I see similarities there where it was the same with Michael Penix Jr. No one really knew he could throw the football as well as he could. And then you get to the camp or you get to the NFL Combine and you're seeing him throwing. They're like, wow, okay, he can throw the football. And now same with Geno. It's, wow, okay, Geno can throw the football. But our next question comes from D'Artagnan. Where do you rank Geno? Top 10, top 5? Mike, I'll let you take it away real quick.
I'm not huge on the numbered rankings. But I'm definitely, I like tiers. I think tier 1 is Mahomes alone. I don't have the same criteria for the tiers, I guess, as Mike Sandel does, so I'm not using those tiers for this. I would say tier 1 is Mahomes alone. Tier 2 is probably Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. That's it. And then after that, I have like a bucket of like tier 2B guys. I would say I have Geno in there. I have Dak in there. Stafford's in there. I don't have everybody in front of me.
CJ Stroud.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Stroud can go in there. Small sample size. I would like to see it.
Joe
I'd like to see it,
Burrow.
particularly in the playoffs. I don't think I got Burrow in there.
Ooh, okay.
I'm not a big Burrow guy in that regard. I think he's really good. He probably at the top of like tier 3 for me. Yeah, I think the top of tier 3 for me. I think he's really accurate though. I will give him that. Accuracy is top notch. I think, let's see. I would probably have in that tier
Tyler?
2B. I'm getting iffy on Kyler tomorrow. I'll watch film of him, man. I get happy feet in that pocket, baby. I'll probably have Dak, Stafford, uh, yeah, Stroud, Geno, and you know what? I'll throw Purdy in that as well because Purdy is nails, and he reminds me of Geno a little bit where it's like even the games where he don't have like that all star cast around him, like he's kind of gets knocked for having Purdy can spin. Um, yeah, and I'll throw Burrow in there. That'll be my last one. They're all in that same pocket for me. Um, so yeah, I that's where I would have it, and then that next tier probably has Kyler. Who else am I missing? Jalen Hurts. I'm probably missing some Tua and Goff are kind of in the same tier for me. Same thing with like Hurts, Tua, Baker. It's like you guys are good. You know, I don't know what to do with Julian Love. Too small a sample. He was basically good for like half a season. So not really he was for real. It was like good for like 9 games. Not really sure what to do with that. Kind of an incomplete grade for me. Feel a bit better grading Stroud. But yeah, Geno definitely there's not if I had to put a number on it before we go to the next question, there ain't 6 dudes probably I'm taking. If all things are equal, if you just say, hey, I need an accurate guy who's going to stand in the pocket, throw over the middle, and then if things get funky around his feet, he's not going to basically just he's just not going to only bail to his right and cut the field in half, which is what you see a lot of the time. Yeah, probably about 5 guys I'm taking over, so maybe he's right outside that top 5. But man, you see it on film, you see it live. That boy can spin, man.
Yeah, through 4 weeks, I would say he's in that top 10 discussion. Now, obviously, I have Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar, Stafford, Dak Prescott, Joe Burrow, and now it gets tricky. Now I see, okay, Geno, Justin Herbert. There's something about him. I don't know
Oh, I
what it
forgot
is.
Herbert. I don't know, man. I'm not a big Herbert guy either, man.
I just don't. I don't know enough. I'm not gonna sit here and act like I watch a bunch of games, but from
See,
from what I've read, all the other people have him as a top 10 to 12 quarterback. So I feel okay, I could put him in there without going back and watching all of his games and watching his throws. But for me, I think Geno's definitely in the conversation as a top 10. And
mhm.
if he has a strong season and they make a playoff push, Geno could be top 5. So that's pending. So he has room to grow, and I think he knows that. And his famous line, "Y'all wrote me off, but I ain't right back," is it's still there just because of how well he's been playing so far. So it'll be interesting to see for sure. Let's see, what else do we have? Okay, obviously this from Holly. Obviously the score says one thing, but what are some of the good takeaways from the game?
Good takeaways are definitely Geno, definitely Ken Walker, man. Like, you know, Ken is really Ken probably should have been like a first round pick. Keep it funky. Now, for real, because you look at the running backs who do go in the first round, like Najee Harris went in the first round. You know what I mean? Like, probably shouldn't have, but did. Travis Etienne, I believe, was a late first round pick. Um, I mean, Gibbs. I don't have all the first round running backs the last few years in front of me, but Ken is like that. You look at the guys who went in the first round. I think Derrick Henry was first round, if I believe. Trying to think of Christian McCaffrey. Saquon Barkley was the second pick, which is kind of nuts. But I mean, you just look at the game-changing ability they have. He's just as good as that. The home run speed, the making people miss. He can catch. He can, he's strong, super powerful. You know what I mean? Like having him back really makes a difference. He is a game changer. He, like DK, it can be 1st and 10 from your own 30, and he could score. He and DK are like the only 2 guys on the team I feel confident saying that about. And they just show it with their explosiveness, There's not that many guys like that in the league. The Lions offense is so scary because they have 3 of those type of guys. Gibbs, St. Brown, and Jameson Williams. That's why they're so scared. Those guys take the top off the defense, or can just run through the defense in Gibbs's case or like a Saquon's case, So I think that's a huge positive. I think the other one outside of Geno was that the O-line held up, and that was a lot of obvious passing situations too. It wasn't just, okay, we're going to throw on second down. Maybe the threat of play action is there. It was a lot of empty, a lot of shotgun. They mixed in some play actions and some screens to keep them honest, but it was a lot of pure drop back situations where it was like, yo, number 97's coming. Do what you got to do, you know? And I thought they held up well in just off watching the game first, you know, first go at it without doing a deep dive. That is a huge thing because who knows when Abe Lucas is coming back? George Fant's still on IR. Christian Haynes and Anthony Bradford are probably going to continue to rotate throughout the season. So this is what you got. This is your 5/6 guys, and this is going to be them. And they're going to get challenged every week. That Giants front line is real. The Niners front line is real. I don't even know the schedule beyond that, but pretty much everybody has decent pass rushers outside the Cardinals. And, you know, so they're going to get challenged every week, and then you're going to have to hold up like this, you know? So that's a huge positive, I think, if you're looking for them. I don't have any positives for the defense, though. I'm sorry.
Nah, you're good. This is from Bean Burritos. Is K9 the best back in the league?
No, it's still Christian McCaffrey. But, like, if we had to tier it, I would probably go Christian McCaffrey. I don't know what to do with Chubb coming off the knee surgery, but, like, of the healthy guys, Chubb, well, I guess CMC not healthy either, but you get my point. I will
Derrick Henry.
go, yeah, CMC, Henry, and probably Saquon in, like, tier 1 and then tier 2. Probably putting
Jonathan Taylor, Aaron Jones.
yeah, Jonathan Taylor, Aaron Jones, Bijan, Ken. I'm still high on Breece Hall, even though he's having some issues behind a really
Ooh,
bad.
you know what? Tier 1, they might have to throw a Bijan in there, man.
I can't put him in there yet. I can't put him in. He still got to produce. Still got to produce, you know. I'm not gonna put you in there off potential. He's got the talent, but you know, you could say the same thing about Breece, I guess. But like I feel very confident there's not like 4 running backs better than healthy Ken. Because he's got the home run speed, the power, and the elusiveness, you know, and can catch. Right? Like that's the thing. Derrick Henry, you don't really catch much, but by God, when you're that big, it doesn't matter, you know. And then Christian McCaffrey is a complete package. Saquon is a complete package, even though he drops a lot of passes, ton of passes actually. But yeah, Ken's right there in that elite group. You know, like talking to Ryan Grubb this offseason, you could tell he was like, dog, if we just don't screw this up, we're gonna be nasty. Because he's like, look at what I inherited. You know, like look at the weapons dude got. We may be missing a running back. It's hard to do on the fly, those type of questions, but that's fine. That's part of the gig. If we're missing somebody, I'm sorry. But off the top of my head, those are the guys I feel good about. I'd throw Chubb in there when healthy. Chubb's the best runner I've ever seen live, probably outside of Derrick Henry. But yeah, that's Ken's right there in that elite group. Like if tier 1 is the elite quarterbacks and Geno's right outside of that, Ken is in the elite group. That dude is just special talent. Should have been a first round pick, probably.
From Eric, do the coaches encourage DK to fight for extra yards, or are they telling him to get down faster?
Yeah, I mean, their general rule of thumb is don't stretch out near the goal line so you don't have the fumble and then it's a touchback. That's only hard and fast rule I know. Then they just have general rules about ball security. The funky one about that, I mean, DK fights for yards all the time because he's as big as a transformer. But the funky one about that is I couldn't tell in real time. I thought he was reaching for the first down. He had already got the first.
Yeah, he was gone.
Yeah, that was weird. That was the weird one about that. You know, I didn't talk to DK after the game. I think he said he was going to get an IV, and I wanted to do the interview, and then I just got busy. He got busy, so it didn't work out. But I mean, just looking at the play, that was the weird part. It's not that they tell guys go down, go down, go down. You know, fighting for extra yards is fine. You just got to protect the ball. You don't fight for extra yards at the expense of ball security. That's probably what the coaches say. I don't know for sure. The only hard and fast rule is extending near the end zone. Tyler broke that rule last year in Detroit. Thankfully, they won the game, but that was a big no-no. Other than that, it's just protect the ball. But yeah, the weird one there was the down and distance. I think it was first down too. I think if I got that right. Like it was just it was an odd time to extend. I understand fighting for the extra yard, but the extension was the weird one. Yeah, it was 1st and 10 in the first quarter. So it was a very weird time that was the weird part. It wasn't like they need to tell him go down. It was more like you can fight, but protect the rock. You extended and to get an extra yard on 1st and 10, that's a little weird.
Andrew Hill at What the Hill. Mike, I'll be honest, you might have to go back to the film, but I will ask it anyway. This is the first part. Notice any difference and the offensive performance between Christian Haynes, and Bradford snaps. And then part two, were the refs letting the Seattle DBs play just as physical, you think?
Uh, yeah, I gotta watch the film on the first one. I'm not really sure. I do know that what I expect to see when I go back and look is that when Haynes was in, they tried not to leave him alone with the nose tackle if they could avoid it because of the power issue there. He's just not as he don't got the junk in the trunk that AB got. You know, AB's a much bigger guy, bigger legs, bigger lower body. So you can probably just ask him to solo up on the nose, clear him out, or clear a path, right? Whereas you probably want to set up some combo blocks with Christian, probably not leave him one on one against like a really good three technique and an obvious passing situation. Those are the things I'll be looking for. It's way too hard to tell in real time, those things. As for the DBs, I don't I thought it was I'd have to go back and look, but off my first look, I thought they were calling it pretty even both ways. I think they missed calls both ways. I thought they got some calls right, both ways. Um, like Carlton Davis and DK were pretty physical with one another. I feel like they were policing that, trying to make sure, like, hey guys, like, yo, stop, y'all just wrestling out here. Stop. To both of them. You can see both of those guys talking to the refs. Just off first glance, though, in terms of the coverage in general, it just wasn't as sticky as I'm accustomed to. Like I said, I don't think there was many contested catches, if any. That's really rare. You know, Spoon's usually right there. I don't know if Reek gave up anything. I'd have to go back and look. It just didn't. It just felt like everybody was open.
He gave up
Screens
one
underneath.
on a comeback. I forget who on a curl route. I forget who it was. He made the tackle, but that was the only one that I think off top that I remember him giving up.
Yeah, it wasn't like a barbecue chicken type of day. Um, Yeah, I mean, they gave up a lot to, like, Tim Patrick. That was weird. Not that he's a fine receiver, but yeah, the screens, just a lot of stuff that I just like, yo, what's going on? It just wasn't sticky, not sticky coverage. Which is weird in a dome too. It's weird. It feels like the Seahawks don't play well in domes, but then Geno plays his butt off. I don't have
Yeah.
like the stats to back up the defensive part of that, but I do know Geno's numbers in domes. He's basically Dan Marino. It's very strange. Um, he kind of talked about weather not being an influence, which is part of it, but yeah, I don't know about the defensive part. Yeah, just the coverage stickiness was not there. It felt like, Chris, a little bit like the Minnesota game in 2021 where DJ Reed was like, "Yeah, we just got schemed up." It felt like a scheme thing. It felt like Ben Johnson was in his bag, guys were on their heels, and it just kinda spiraled, just really spiraled. I just can't we really can't overstate how nuts it is to not get an incompletion. That is just a really, really just funky stat. That is just mind-boggling. Never seen that in my life. Even on a day like when Brock Purdy, like, carved him up, or like when Dak did, or the times we've seen Goff do it, it just never looks like this. This was
Yeah.
I guess to answer the question earlier about positives, you can probably guess or say I can say with confidence probably this is perhaps the worst the secondary will ever look is today. It'll probably never look as bad as today. I don't think that's humanly possible. It is only going up from here for the secondary. That's probably the positive from that group for sure.
Well, then the next one comes from Huff. Are you concerned with the secondary after tonight or Monday night?
No,
Excuse me.
no, I don't think so. Um, I don't think so. Also, I don't really think that they'll have a team with this type of firepower. I'd have to look at the schedule. Let me pull it up real fast. This is real deal firepower. Oh, I guess the Niners,
Yeah, I
but
was gonna
I'm
say the
not.
Niners for sure.
I'm not as worried about that. Yeah, Jets, Cardinals, Packers, Vikings.
Bills.
No, I'm not really buying the Bills offensive like whole everybody eats. Oh, we're in kumbaya because we got rid of Stephon Diggs. That's BS. Everybody needs a wide receiver one. He
Well,
wasn't this poisonous fruit on their happy tree. I think they're gonna have some issues, particularly when they have to play from behind.
so
You're not
it's
gonna have
just
an elite offense playing your leading receiver being Khalil Shakir. I just don't believe in that. Sorry.
so you got the Rams, Niners. What are your thoughts on the Falcons? Because
No, I don't believe that. I think they're gonna. I think that's gonna be ugly. That should be a butt whooping. I don't believe in
okay.
Kirk on one leg. Yeah, it's just the Niners really because Shanahan's real deal. The Rams are so banged up. Who knows what they're putting out there on offense by then? So yeah, I'm really just worried about the Niners, but I was worried about them regardless. None of the other games would have mattered anyway because of what Shanahan usually does to them. So yeah, that game, but in general, no. I think it'll never look. I don't think it could possibly look like this again. That's just a super outlier game. I think.
This next one is from Pat McCarron. Which starter on defense did the Seahawks miss the most on Monday night?
Oh, good question. I would probably say it's a really good one. I hadn't viewed it that way. Man, probably Leonard. I think
That was
just because
that
of
was my
just because of
answer.
the interior pressure is just such a tough thing to deal with, you know, because it's just right at you. You can step up if your tackle is beat, unless he just walked back, like the Derek Hall sack. Good God, that was crazy. Um, you can step up usually if your edge guys are a problem, but when it's coming right up the gut, buddy, you really do about that. And Leonard's a beast in the run game too. I feel like they missed his toughness there. I don't think they win the game per se if Leonard plays, but I do think, yeah, to answer that question, I'd probably go with Leonard. Losing J Love does stink, but like they weren't really getting stops with him either. I'd have to go back and look at the tape. Maybe that busted coverage doesn't happen on the 70-yarder, maybe. Don't know. I don't know whose fault that was, but yeah, I would have to say Big Cat. Just what a nose tackle slash one technique slash three technique, can do for your run game and pass game. That's really hard to replace, which is why those guys make so much money and why they get drafted in the first round.
This next one comes from Tough Guy Football. Is Julian the only guy in the secondary who can tackle? All of a sudden I have a severe PTSD with the abysmal tackling.
Uh, um, Man, I thought Julian had a really good tackle in the alley on two Gibbs runs that probably score if he misses. So yeah, he tackled really well when he was in. I don't think so. I think Rayshawn actually tackles really well. It has for a decent part of the season. Spoon usually Spoon Spoon's kind of the Josh Allen of tackling sometimes. Like sometimes it's a spectacular, like, oh my God, you're the best tackler ever. And sometimes it's like, oh damn, Spoon, you got to make that. So kind of high variance. Like if I had to go look, I bet you he has a pretty high missed tackle rate from last year. It just didn't feel like that because he body slams people too, and he decapitated Rondell Moore. So it doesn't feel like that, but he does miss. Like you said earlier, missed a sack again. Um, but no, I think that in general, the whole team's been good at tackling through 3 weeks. No one was like bad at it. Everyone just it was almost like the good tackling and the good communication was infectious through the first 3 weeks, and today all the bad stuff was infectious. It didn't feel like even in the Patriots game, it felt like they had like a bad quarter of tackling, and then when it was time to kind of nut up, they did in overtime and did what they had to do. Like it felt like they were like, all right, let's stop this. We're messing around. Let's lock in. It didn't feel like that happened today. I thought it did for a series, but the real test was, I believe, they scored to cut it to 8 again, I want to say. And then the first play was the 70-yard. Yeah, it was at that point, it was 35-27. They got to stop. And I think it was the first play,
Yes,
if
it
I have
was.
that correct.
Play
Yeah.
action pass. Yep.
Yeah, and it was just like, oh no, sorry. It was 20-35 no, it was 20-28. That's what it was. Sorry. 20-28. And you're like, oh, okay, maybe we got a chance. And then nope, 70 yards to the house. And it's like, damn, man. Shoot, even when they got it to 27-35, that was with 14:48 left. They forced a stop, and then the offense didn't answer. But they had a chance, and then they go down and get a 80-yard drive. It's just like, y'all letting Tim Patrick walk up and down the field, man. It just, yeah, that was rough. That was really, really, really rough. I think the quote from there was a quote from I think Isaiah Likely, either Isaiah Likely or Roquan Smith after the first game. The Ravens played against the Chiefs this year. I want to say it was Likely, where he said, "This is the worst we're ever going to be. So if that's what they got, we'll be fine." That's probably not true. However,
Yeah.
I do feel like that defensively a little bit, where it's like, if this is the worst, like you said kind of earlier, Chris, get that out the way now. Learn from it now, because you got to be worlds better than this pretty much every week going forward. Because this was just inexcusable in pretty much every possible way on defense.
Well, hopefully nobody on the Seahawks says that during any press conferences this week, because the following week after losing to the Chiefs, they lose to the Oakland or the Las Vegas Raiders. So that didn't really work well for Isaiah and the Ravens. Just thought I'd throw that
Nope,
out there.
no, it did not. No, it did not. You're correct.
Josh Dixon, is the trade for Gibson instead of keeping Daryl Taylor looking pretty bad at this point in time? I think Daryl Taylor would have made a huge difference in this game with the outside linebacker injuries the Seahawks have.
No, I don't think so. And I think we talked about this when they got rid of DT. It's like, that was a position where you've needed depth in the past because of injuries. So it probably wasn't a position they should have felt like they had a surplus at. And then what do you know? Chenna gets hurt, However, the counterpoint to that, and a fair counterpoint, I should add, is that even when they did have those injuries, they had Daryl Taylor and still needed depth. They still had to start Bruce Irvin, because they didn't have they having DT didn't prevent them from needing to go get help, I guess is the short version of that. So keeping him wouldn't have changed anything. They probably still would have had to go get a Gibson because they had to go get Leonard. They had DT. They had to go get Frank. They had to go get Bruce Irvin. Even before they got Bruce, DT still wasn't starting. I think they were starting. I think his name was like Bam Johnson or something like that. I can't remember I think his first name was like Daryl. But they were starting him. I think he got hurt in the Detroit game in 2022. So they was like, oh, let's call Bruce. So I say that to say no. I think that even if you had DT, the reasons that you needed to go get other guys in the past, because even when you had DT, those reasons probably still be the same. Everyone knows he can rush the passer. That was not the issue. I think he's killing it right now for the Bears. I don't know how many sacks he has. I know he had 2 in the first game. He's probably rushing the passer just fine. I bet you his pass rush, win rate or whatever, is through the roof through 4 weeks. I have no idea what it is. I'll look it up later. I'm sure it's great. But that wasn't the thing. The thing was, all right, we need you to be tough and physical on the edge, make some tackles, and I cannot in good faith assume that would have been the case this year based on what I saw the previous few years, So would he have made a difference today? Maybe. But I think we've seen that having him didn't prevent them from needing more help in the past. I don't think so. I think that issue still would have been the same this year, even with the injuries to Chenna, Boye. I still think they would have had to call up other guys,
Oh, Bono. We need linebacker and guards, and they don't grow on trees. What are the solutions?
Yeah, I think today was weird. Guard probably not that bad. I really thought the O-line was fine. It wasn't a day where I was like, yo, what guards can they trade for? And off first glance, I didn't think that was the case at linebacker either. What felt really weird was it felt like, and this is without getting any inside info, I'm just guessing, it just felt like a little bit of doing too much. It felt like a few times they were just run blitzing and then it was just no second level support. Maybe that was the call or miscommunication, but there was a couple times where it was like, all right, Tyrell just shoots it. Okay, cool. Maybe that's the play. And then, but if he missed, there's just nobody there. It was a very weird thing. In general, I do think the linebackers will probably be league average, probably about league average, which is probably fine if your secondary is as good as it is and the pass rush is as good as it is when healthy. League average is probably okay. Today really just felt like guys were not on the same page at any level of the defense, particularly right there in the middle. It just looked out of whack. I missed Jonathan Hankins' press conference, but like you said, he's mentioned guys are just not in their gaps. He's probably talking about up front because that's all he can see. But it just looked like that at all the levels. Everybody, especially when you play split safety coverage or split safety defense too high, that the safeties are in the run fits. Your nickels are in the run fits too. So it's not just your backers. It's not just your D line. It's everybody. And that second level, those linebackers, is very important. If they hit a gap and miss, it can get ugly. So that's what happened. That's what I felt like happened a lot today. believe it or not, there weren't actually that many explosive runs today, Chris. I tried to check that before we hopped on. I tried to add it to my story. I can't remember if I got it in there or not, but an explosive run is categorized as 12 yards or more. There were only two. That was it. David Montgomery had a 13 yarder and Gibbs had a 20 yarder. And then both of those were in the first quarter. Doesn't mean the other runs weren't bad too, but like it wasn't like we've seen in the past where they just get gashed for real. The yards per carry was bad for the day. I think it was between Gibbs and what's my man name?
Montgomery.
Yeah, Gibbs and Montgomery. They averaged 4.5. But like you said, Montgomery was only 12 for 40. His
Yeah,
big one was the 40 yarder, but that was a reception. So I don't want to just put this all on like, okay, Seattle needs new linebackers tomorrow. Because I feel like this was more of a guys, why are we doing too much? You know, it felt like up front a lot of to use a TV reference, that scene in Fresh Prince of Bel Air where Carlton takes the ball from Will and just heaves that joint with one arm and tries to be the hero. And it's like, dog, pass the ball to Will. What are you doing? You know, what did we rehearse? Why did we rehearse? It's a drumline reference, but it felt like that, you know, more so than like, all right, the linebackers are trash. We're screwed. I think the baseline for the linebackers is like, all right, probably gonna be a league average unit. Today was bad. I don't think it'll be that bad going forward. Mostly because I don't think Tyrell will be as inconsistent as he was today.
I think that goes into the trust factor, communication, because of the injuries. And now it's okay, we have these guys filling in, but are we going to be able to generate pressure? Are we going to be able to get the edges set? Are we going to be able to get into the backfield? And to your point, okay, we got a blitz. Oh, well, Tyrell blitzed and he shot the gap and he missed. And now what? I think there was just a bunch of that. And that just comes down to trust. And now that they realize, okay, we might be missing some guys, you know, no telling when I would assume Uchenna Nwosu was back next week, but who knows, right? The hamstring injury of Byron Murphy, that's another dangerous one. Leonard Williams. So there's a bunch of uncertainty. But if these guys can get comfortable and understand, I trust you to do your job, you trust me, A, B, and C, all the way down the line, including your linebackers, even your safeties, I think it'll look better. Now, obviously, they're not going up against the number one run team probably in the NFL, probably next to the Niners and the Lions, but they do have a chance to rewrite what went wrong and just be better in that specific category as well. This next one comes from Holly. How do you think the Seahawks will approach this next game with a shorter week?
Yeah, I think the short week is real nice to have sometimes because you can't dwell on it. You know, I think the Cowboys just benefited from that. They got run all over by the Ravens and then had to play on Thursday Night Football on the road in New York. So they probably had a super short week in that sense because they had to travel as well. And I think the Giants averaged like 1.1 yards a carry or something like that in that Thursday night game. You know, and the Giants' run game is not nothing to write home about, but it's better than 1.1 yards a carry. And I think that having the short week, you know, probably helped. It was like, all right, we don't have time to think about it. We just got to go.
Yeah.
So I think that'll help these guys a lot. They don't have to think about it. They can just roll.
This next question is from Sam. I missed it earlier, but we'll jump right into it right now. Was the plan to attack DK to attack with DK since the Detroit DBs were playing so aggressive?
Yeah, I think not just DK with all of them though, but we talked about this. I think after the first game too, offensively, Grubb's looking for matchups. Depends on who the matchup is. You know, some weeks DK will have the advantage. Some weeks it'll be Tyler. It was Tyler in week 1. Some days it'll be JSN. You know, some days it'll be Noah. You know, Noah got busy, I think, against the Dolphins. So Grubb's always looking for that. And no disrespect to Carlton Davis, but mm, Grubb will take DK 10 times out of 10, you know? So if you're going to one-on-one DK, that's where the ball is going. Yeah, that was the case when they had Jeff Okuda. I think they had him both of the last 2 meetings, at least the last one, or the first, at least in 2022, I think. Anyway, bottom line is Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator for the Lions, he likes to be aggressive. He likes to trust his DBs in one-on-one man coverage, very similar to the Patriots. And a lot of teams just like to single up DK if they feel like they got a corner they can trust. And Geno's going to go there. I think that's always going to be the plan if you can get telegraphed one-on-one matchups with DK pretty much against whoever, you got to be a little bit safer with some of the throws. I think if you're talking about like Patrick Surtain, Sauce Gardner, there's some other guys, Stephon Gilmore, there's probably a bunch, but I mean, it was the same thing as Dallas last year. Okay, you got Deron Bland, first team All Pro, probably. Bet. Here's 3 tugs. Like anytime you just know you're gonna get man coverage with DK, the ball's gonna go there every week. The only one that they kind of seem to avoid that's a little funky is Charvarius Ward. They take the shots, but not as many as you would think against Charvarius, who's a really good corner. But yeah, but even then, playoff game, 50-yard bomb over Charvarius' head, right? So, like they're not scared. Every time you're gonna get obvious matchups one-on-one, they feel like DK is gonna win, as they should. He's not always gonna win, but his hands have been a little better this year, a little better, which is good. So yeah, it wasn't just this week. It's any week that you get a team that's like gonna make it very clear they're going one-on-one with DK, like the Rams used to do with Jalen Ramsey. The Dolphins did with Jalen Ramsey as well on DK. Yeah, the ball is gonna go there. They just expect DK to win. Sometimes that'll be down the field. Sometimes it'll be underneath. Sometimes it'll be back shoulder stuff like you saw today. Just depends on the corner. But yeah, 100% the plan, and it will be every week that you're gonna get a man coverage team every single week.
This last one comes from Ryan Turner at Turns44. The Seahawks took a chance on a first-year coach and a first-time NFL offensive coordinator. What kind of grade do you give Mac and Grubb after 4 games? And are we as 12 set for a long time?
That's a good question. I mean, I think you can only be set for a long time in the NFL if you can win your division with semi-consistency. Or you look at the people who have been in their posts for a long time, they can consistently compete for the division crown. Mike Tomlin, John Harbaugh, even Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan have been at it for a little bit, and you feel like those guys are going to be around for a while because they've proven they can go win the division, right? You win the division, you can get home playoff games. That means a lot of money. That means usually an easier path to the Super Bowl. Every coach I just named has been to the Super Bowl. I think they've all been multiple times, I believe. Maybe Harbaugh hasn't, but you get the gist. So I think that's the only way to be set, because if you're just a habitual wild card team, that's tough. It's just tough space to live in. You're like a couple injuries away from 6-11, kind of. That's a tough space. But if you can win a division with some regularity, then yeah, you can be around for a little bit. Bill Belichick. I guess another example of that in the AFC would be obviously Andy Reid. They win the division every year. Oh, Sean McDermott, the Bills coach. It feels like they just been winning the division, ever since Tom Brady left. So, like, if you can consistently win your division, you'll be around for a little bit. And if you can't, Mike McCarthy, Nick Sirianni, it feels like those guys in the NFC East, it's tougher. They've won it, obviously, but if you don't win it with consistency or consistently compete for it, it's going to be hard. So we'll see. The Niners game will probably tell us a little bit more about that than any of these will.
Well, there you have it. What a tough loss on Monday Night Football. But I'll tell you this, it was very exciting. A lot of touchdowns. I'm sure a lot of you took the over. Smart people out there if you're gambling. So we want to thank you for listening, tuning in for another episode of Seahawks Man to Man. We have more coming later this week. Other than that, though, Mike is like, I got to get to bed or stay up all night. Let's try to get Mike to go to bed. So, Mike, outside of that, is there anything you want to add before we let you get out of here, man?
My last thing, just to show how much I love you guys. It is 2:58 in the morning in Detroit as we're signing off right now. So, yes, I'm about to bounce. Thank you for the love and support. Enjoy the show. We'll have more shows with you this week. I'm going to go get some sleep. Peace.